We call the May 15th, 2023 meeting of Fairport Industrial Development Agency to order. And ask if there is any public comment for the board. Seeing no one, hearing no one, I'll close public comment. We'll move on to approval of the April 17th, 2023 meeting minutes. And Rob was excused from that meeting, so it's the three of us.
So moved. Second.
Any comments, corrections, or discussion regarding those minutes? All in favor? Aye.
No, stay.
Let's move on to financial reporting. Start with resolution 2023-05, authorizing payment of the IDA bills.
I reviewed the bills and I moved to make payments.
Second.
Any questions, or Martha, anything that you want to call our attention to on any of the IDA bills?
Just the $8,000 plus charge there for the Fairport Municipal Commission is the cameras that were installed in the Thomas Creek wetlands. And we're working on a grant opportunity for that, or finishing out the grant. Next up is signage. So they're very happy that that's completed.
Any questions or other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the financials for IDA, P&L, cash balances, and we have the Tompkins investment report. Where does anyone wants to talk about? Question? Okay. So with that, we can move on to old business. And our first item is Black Dog Designs. Welcome, Chris. He's going to share some updates with us. So all you, Chris.
Thank you. So I'm Chris from Black Dog Designs. I know I've met just about everyone. So we just have an update of the brand development as well as the web design and development, which is in process. We're pretty far along the way here. We've got a lot of things finalized. We've been working with Martha closely to really tweak a lot of these last few things, whether it's messaging, a little bit of layout, where we really have a pretty defined style and look for a lot of these pieces. So I'll start with this document. Is that large enough up here? I know everyone has it as well. This document here, just as sort of a status update, and then we can actually pop in and look at a few of these things as well. So really from the brand development stage, things we've completed are the visual brand development, messaging, positioning, stationery set. There are a couple things that are still open on that. Table cover, yard signs. We've created social media, print ad, and digital ad templates. The intention of those files is really to just give you a workable file that has a look and feel that can be used for a specific placement down the road. So for example, we'll give you the workable files. They're shared in a link. If they're needed to be placed in Canva, for example, you'll have a layered file for whoever would be doing this on your end to say, change the photo, change the copy to make it applicable to those placements and usages. In terms of the brand development things that are still open, we will definitely have a final review of all pieces. That includes updating photos across everything, even the brand book, once the photographer is complete and has those files to you. Stationery set is putting that letterhead into a Word template, and folders, I think there was some really small copy that we were just thinking of what we want to have it say on there. The bifold sheets for the organizations, we're working on with Martha to finalize the copy for the LDC, URA, IDA, and Section 8 pages. And once we have that final copy, we really want to use that for those sheets. So we're not working two documents at once and going back and forth and changing each. Standing banner, that's really waiting for a photo update as well. Email template and presentation template, I think we just sent back, is it very end of last week,
Yes.
I think. But those are just out there. Those templates also will be populated for you to use. So I'll pull,
Before you go to the web, can you pull up like
yes.
the image of the banner or the website or the
So I was gonna pull up the guide
the launch?
first.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You just kind of skim through this. It's black on there.
Let's do that.
I can change colors on us.
That'll help.
I see
Okay.
it.
Well,
Too much?
it's more like that. It's
Sure.
I see it.
So yeah, we really populated a lot of the messaging design styles into this booklet that can be provided to anyone here so that everyone understands how things should look, how we're positioning ourselves. If you were to hire a new employee, they can understand who, OSED really is.
Or when we engage
Yep.
outside
Partners.
marketers or that type of thing.
So I'll just scroll down through here. I won't read through every single piece. And this is actually dropped in a final folder. So if anyone wants to pop in and see the files in there, same with the website testing link after today, we can make sure you have those. So everything from the mission and vision to brand messaging and purpose, tone of voice.
For example, I provided this to the photographer and he found it useful for his work.
Functional benefits, emotional benefits, reasons to believe in us. Some of the things, as you could tell, are still being populated into here. Then specific, what do we do for each agency? What does it mean? Kind of in layman's terms for how you describe these services, programs.
And that we'd use this also to have a consistent voice throughout
Exactly. Yep.
our website.
And so are those the icons we selected for each of those of the final ones? Like the people for LDC and
I think they're laid out here. And then we obviously have the primary logo. So when it's on a white background, on a colored background, variations for each agency with the arc that changes colors. Section 8 obviously matches the URA logo. We have that in one color here because when we're discussing that this would probably be printed primarily in one color oftentimes, just because there seems to be more volume with all of those. LBC option, the typefaces that are used, color palettes. For example, you mentioned signage for that project. If you wanted to match, certain colors, you could pick these, provide those to the signage vendor. They know which ones to use.
When I'm ordering the business cards, for example, I gave them this.
We have icons here in both the generic navy blue as well as their colors. Photography styles, for example, this will be something that once we have the final photos, we want to update and only use actual photos, not any stock in here. And that is that guide document. I can also pull up some of the individual pieces here.
Maybe the banner and the lawn signs. Our survey says people know us from our lawn signs so far, which is a good thing, but.
So we have a lawn sign here you already had these printed, correct?
I have not ordered them.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
ready to.
Awesome.
But we incorporated a QR code,
Like that idea.
get us right
Yeah.
to our website.
why not? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then this has some notes here.
Right.
So this actually looks to be the last version.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have updated this copy here. We're going to drop in a new photo, and then that really will be wrapped up as well. You'll pull up the presentation template.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I think there's kind of multifaceted, that one.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
And then this is just a template. Obviously, Martha, you probably use this quite a bit. This is just a design file, but again, this will be populated into PowerPoint so that anyone could use this. So title page, table of contents page, listing out the agencies, and all this will be built into live text so you can adjust anything as you see fit. Staff page, board page. If you wanted to drop in a quote from somebody, that can go in here as well. This would just be an example of a basic content page with an image on the right, and then flipped version in case there's a lot of these pages so you could alternate back and forth. A gallery page. I know on one of the presentations you shared with us, there was just quite a few photos that was, look at the project completed, and then a closing page as well. So again, it'll be a template that can be used internally.
I do for example, the annual report to the village board, or if I'm out at a Rotary presentation or those types of things.
And then I guess I'll get into the website as we're in here. So
And I also want to thank Leslie White again for her. She spends a lot of time with us, which is very helpful.
yes.
This is the fun part.
Mhm.
So I'll pull up this link here. There are a few things that are on there aren't 100% finalized. So there are some copying content updates, like some of the agency pages that we're working on. The document search functionality, we had a solution, and then Martha, Leslie, and I were actually on a call. How would you search for something? How would you search for something? And Leslie, you made the comment of, I would probably search and want to find something that's in the PDF. So we reached out to eCode 360, which is the platform the village used.
Yep.
It looked like they said it was about $200 a year on their site, but I wanted to verify, is that actually the pricing for exactly what they have? If so, we can integrate that into the website. We think that's probably a better solution than if we try to customize anything that would have to be maintained, especially for $200 a year. That seems like that would be a more favorable way to go to make sure that it's working and functioning properly.
As part of that, I asked Chris to take a look at what other IDAs and economic development organizations did, and it's a list of PDFs that aren't searchable. And we, with Leslie's input, felt that we should be as open and transparent as possible in what we do. We're not trying to hide anything. So I asked Chris to find us. I showed him what the village does. And I mean,
I think the town uses that as well.
do they? I think it's a pretty standard, and the search function works really
Yes.
well. If you, for example,
Actually,
typed
I
in
have one.
75 North Main on
Or lawn
the,
signs. Oh, that was just one that came up today.
oh,
Yeah, totally. Search by address, search by property,
somebody's
village
name.
in, or,
Right.
you
Yes,
or variants. You know what I mean? You can find all sorts of.
And it
Right.
makes the content within the PDF file searchable as well. So
I think there's probably
Yes.
some conversion to that, or,
So for example, I just searched Village Inn, and I found any document that's highlighted there references Village Inn within the PDF.
Okay.
As opposed to being searchable via titles. So Village Inn wasn't a title, you
Right.
wouldn't be able to find anything, whereas
that's
something
well
like
over
this.
$200 a year.
Yeah.
right.
And
And we could
Makes
also
it a whole lot more usable.
there's
Yeah.
at the front page, you can say, show me all the minutes from 2021. Or you can start, parsing it down, but see that, we'd have, I assume that is,
Yep.
hopefully that same functionality.
when I reached out to them, I actually gave them this link. I was like, this is pretty much what we want to do. Similar thing. The only questions I had were, can this be embedded? Is that be an iframe, a short code? That would be nice if it can be.
Right, because do we leave the website here?
This leaves the village site technically. So ideally, it's something that can be embedded. That might be an option. Not sure if the village chose that or if that's an additional cost, but those
I
were.
don't think it takes, I don't think it's embedded because I end up with two different.
Oh yeah, like this is
Windows?
an
Yeah,
external
different
website.
windows, but it doesn't take you anywhere else. Like there's not advertising on the page and those sorts of things.
Got
So you either close it and go back to the minutes or, the original documents.
Mhm. But again, we wanted to make it as easy as possible to search the things we do. I use our website as a reference tool, actually, because that to me is the public facing documents, and those are kind of sacred. So I often do that myself.
A few of the other things are populating articles, success stories, as well as PDFs. So if I click and I want to access an application, I know you found someone to transfer over the existing documents onto the new letterhead. I did on the How We Help page have a couple of the old ones linked and just got rid of everything else so you can see
Yes.
how that works. But the intention is there's call it 2 sections there now. There will be, call it 20, and they'll link out to the updated designs, letterhead designs, we'll call them. But there's a couple on there, the old ones that we just wanted to show so you can see.
I realized I had to do all of our policies and all of our applications. And when it came out, it was 60 or 70 documents. So struggled trying to figure out how to find a person to do that. And then I just asked Gina, our bookkeeper. She goes, I'll do that. Okay, good. That's done. So, because it's important that once we get people on our website, that it's consistent throughout. You don't want, now obviously I'm not going to redo old minutes, but our policies should be on the new letterhead, for example, and our applications. So,
And old minutes will still be searchable. with
No,
with
yeah.
text. So I think that's.
yes, yes. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Then just rounding out this, obviously updating photos. Again, once we have those, we'll want to go through, see what we have, see where we can place them on the website. There's obviously a final review and approval phase. Then once everything's approved is when we'll really want to go through and mobile test it. So if you pull this up on a phone now, there might be some things that look off. We prefer to have everything 100% finalized, so we're not changing things, mobile testing, formatting. We want to get it set on a desktop or laptop and then say, okay, it's good. Now let's get it for mobile ready. And then launching the website. So I will pull up, did I pull up the old site first?
Yeah, pull up the old site, please.
So obviously this is an old site, assuming everyone here is pretty familiar with it. So not responsive. The columns with text a little bit busy. Kind of carries the same format through all internal pages. I guess I won't go into too much detail since everyone's probably familiar with this. And then the new site is looking like this. So we have an updated navigation here. Agencies listed under About Us, section for business, section 8 call out as well, community information, success stories, which would be more projects, news, contact, search bar for call it pages and projects, but it wouldn't be, like I said, to search a PDF, which the E-code functionality would do. But if I just scroll down here, things like this, like an icon, you need to check that that's populating in properly. We're really just carrying the identity down through a lot of this.
Chris, will you humor me and make the screen full size and just go back up the top? I'm always interested in like, what does someone see when they first go there on their screen as opposed to scrolling?
Yep. It's a little white. Am I on 100%? Oh, no, I'm not. So we've actually talked with Martha about having something a little more interactive here as well. That maybe states a tagline. This could also be a slider where it could be a new project, grant application or program is launched. That could also go up here.
And the photo is
The
obviously
photo
going to be swapped
rotate
out.
like the other one,
Yes, like we can do that as well.
so it can represent all the different aspects of who we are.
Like one thought is there's the community collaboration connection. You could ideally assign a photo that represents kind of each of those 3 pillars, have those cycle through. Just waiting for photos on that. And the agencies, looks like an icon is showing but not showing there. These would link out to an agency page. Just some about information. So go down resources. So this would go to whether it is on Eco 360 or wherever those documents would go. This would bring you there. There'd be business resources, resident resources, success stories, which will be projects. So these will all be populated and updated with the actual ones that we pulled from the site and have in Google Drive currently. Same thing with news articles. These are just fillers right here to mock that up. This would be an Instagram feed, so this is just the default plugin. I haven't seen any birds like this around here. Quick newsletter sign up and a footer. So I'll start going through a couple pages here as well. So you'll notice a lot of the headers have this style. If people have feedback too as you're poking around through this, feel free to provide it, whether it's, hey, we want to make this header photo a little thinner so you can see the next section, or if we like the big imagery. Those are all things that can be adjusted. Checking the vision, what we do, these things hover as you scroll. History of success, which would bring you to projects. The team page. Oh, this is a tab.
Everybody check your bios and photos, please.
I believe we need some headshots still,
I
correct?
think we
I
do.
think we do.
And,
We're doing
and-
action photos.
oh, we can try that. Anything with a high resolution iPhone will work.
Partners, and then you'll notice a lot of these pages at the bottom, they'll always feed in projects, success stories, call to action to connect with us, social, and then the feed for when that's populated. And then into footer. So, for example, I'll go to the team page. So, ideally, a nice group shot would be awesome here.
Yeah. Mhm. Lyndon Paul, we got to update.
Oh.
Who did you send me, Linda? You were going to be, oh, yes. She's used an app.
Best picture up there.
I know.
You didn't put it up there.
Brings to the closing section again. So each page really kind of closed with call to action, link to social, Instagram feed, which doesn't have any photos populated, newsletter sign up, and footer.
And in part of this process, we now have a OSED Facebook page.
Yep, LinkedIn.
And then there's also a link to our YouTube channel.
There's a Section 8 Facebook page as well, an Instagram page also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have an Instagram channel now too.
I grabbed Fairport on the Rise back before the Lethbridge project. I didn't do anything with it. I just wanted to have control of it. So that's, and I think we changed the name now to
Yep.
Fairport
Yep,
OSED.
Alexis changed that.
Mhm.
And what I would suggest, because obviously it is multiple channels, is that use platforms such as later.com. I think we might have talked about it. I forget if it's a free version for one social set. If not, it's like a $10 a month thing, and you can actually create a post and schedule it to 4 different platforms at once. So just using something like that to make it a little easier to streamline using all of these different channels would be very helpful.
Job for social media.
Well, you had mentioned that at some point we might want to, in our budget process,
Yes.
allocate some funds for that. Whether it's person on staff or we have to farm it out, because I've said multiple times, if we have these, they have to be used properly and maintained and updated. And it is not, like, for example, Chris asked me to share one of our ask someone to share our Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. And then he looked at it, he said, but they didn't add anything. They didn't enhance it. They didn't speak to it. It's that type of stuff that you need to understand as a social media professional about how those work.
And why somebody should respond to that survey, as opposed to just no text and just sharing a link. So it's not exactly ideal.
In our one of our interviews this week, it was mentioned about that there are people in the marketplace that will do this on certainly on a part-time basis. You know,
Sure.
and they're really, that's exactly what they do. You
Yeah.
know, not part of a big firm or anything,
Yes.
just individuals that
Mm-hmm.
are available
Probably
for that.
many here locally, I'm
Yep.
sure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll just find out who the good ones are.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I then clicked on an LDC page, the LDC page here, and these are ones that we're actually going through as copy on the agency pages. But just to show you how we have like the color bar at the top changing, obviously what we do, success stories, the hover over effect, uses that color on this page, linking what we have here. And I think there were no
Did the-
PDFs on this because it always said to contact you on the current
Okay.
website for the LDC.
Right,
for
we
someone
can
to only
work
see.
through that. Now, did the color bar at the top stay though when you're scrolling? It doesn't.
So just that navigation piece does.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, just working
Okay.
in that
Mhm.
color kind of subtly here.
Mhm.
Again, this would, if we're using Eco 360, link out to that unless it can be embedded in there. And the closing, I'll go to this page here. So this is realistically the page where there could be every application, not meeting minutes or anything like that for somebody. So how we help page, right now we just have 2 populated into here. So these don't actually filter or bring somebody to a section yet. So we want to wait to make sure all those PDFs are migrated over before we go in and start adding them. But in an ideal world, someone comes here and says, okay, for businesses, they see this as well as called 8 more opportunities across each agency. They can choose to contact, download an application, and it pulls it up for them. So kind of just a quick view for someone to access that.
And so I get on there and I go to the homepage. I don't really care about OSED. All I want to know is how do I get a front porch grant.
Okay,
So I'm on the homepage and I just do a search I'm going search to the far right
Well, let's
and say
go-
front porch grant.
let's go to the homepage.
And what's it going to do for me?
So front porch grant actually isn't on there. So that search right now, which I don't know if this has been.
We haven't got all those documents.
Oh, okay. So it's
That
just,
is-
I mean, it will
yes.
be, it's just not
Yep.
one of the current.
But if he's at the top, we do have for businesses and residents. Up at the top though, we don't
Mhm.
have residents,
We have community.
community. Hmm.
So
My hunch
residents
was we
should
would
be
find it
Residents
based on
should
looking at
be-
this the first time.
I think if we had a resident, that would
residents in
help.
between business.
I thought we did it.
I don't think we have a residents page, but we talked about having residents in the navigation, whether it's a page or brings it to
We did. I
opportunity.
saw something in there.
the community.
What's in community now?
Oh, you can have opportunities, business, residents.
So this is just a little bit of lifestyle facts, community events and things that go on. Recreation, again, this links out. Education. So a lot of just background information here.
Static stuff,
Yep.
pretty much.
In case somebody's saying, hey, I'm looking to relocate, what's the school district like? What type of, outdoor activities?
So a
events, things to
residence
do?
page would have all the information on it about the front porch grants, the senior
Senior,
loans, the
mhm.
senior grants, the what,
We could-
whatever next we do.
We could
Mhm.
certainly build that page with those
Funny
information.
that we didn't
So it
miss,
seems
we
like
missed
there's
that, but
certain-
that's why we bring it
I
forward,
remember
so
it
you all
being there
can.
and it's somewhere
Yeah.
along the way we lost it.
Mhm.
Because it sounds like there's some things from the RA page, right? Opportunities or programs
Yes.
that would go there, but
Yes.
it's also a little different
Yes,
at times.
And
Yes.
yeah.
And I hope this photo isn't one that we would use. I mean, because all you see is no. Seriously, I
Yes.
mean, and you see that in certain communities that highlight you can't do this, you can't do that.
yes,
And
thank you.
So I hope that we scrub
Good
give
catch.
our photos for that.
Mhm.
So ideally, each header photo here is something that's brand new and taken from the, photography shoot.
Mhm.
If
Good.
it was something like this, I think that works. There's an overlay on it, hidden a little more. Even if that was like a stock photo that was from Fairport, I think those work. But as much organic and natural, authentic photography as possible is definitely the way we want to go. We don't have the success stories or news populated. Contact is nice and simple. Same thing here.
Now, could someone upload a completed application to
Yep.
us? Okay.
So I could choose to
Oh,
do this.
cool.
Is there,
And it's safe for all
Security.
financial documents and all that business.
So
is there a disclosure or?
we can add disclosure. I know we talked about using, for example, gravity forms,
Right,
but again, they have also the free versions as well as upgraded paid versions for if you wanted somebody to actually be providing you like sensitive data through this form.
Which we,
We do.
Yeah, so I guess that's the question. Do we want it through this platform?
As the governance chair, no, thank you.
Right,
Not the way we're currently set up.
I think we want to give them the opportunity to upload a picture of their house
Mhm.
or, will this work for my front porch grant?
Oh, yeah, sure.
But,
But like
As
what we
to-
have today, we have somebody's tax return.
oh,
know,
absolutely not.
Right here.
We would not. So
Yeah.
what's the recommendation? Just a disclosure?
I would
on
say
there for
disclosure, please do
confidential
not
information,
upload.
contact us,
Yes.
contact me or whatever.
Yep.
But to allow them to upload things.
Do other ideas and other organizations have greater security that allows that? I'm just asking. 'Cause I don't-
They really don't have very good.
No, you're
We
right.
noticed that we were looking at we were researching the like meeting minutes, documents of how people are doing things, and it was almost just a long, lengthy list of PDFs with no ability to search, see what it is.
In particular, where we're inviting people to send us their most personal information, like tax return, everything that would be on there that wouldn't be redacted by the person sending it
Well-
in.
Right.
That would concern me for sure.
What
We're-
about if
we're
we just
inviting it.
deleted the upload thing in total? Because somebody can still email us something. That way, no one could ever send their tax returns to us,
But then they couldn't send us their pictures unless you wanted. to
unless
email
they email them. I don't know, what's your,
We always say that unless you really want to pay for an upgraded, form that is guaranteeing, like Gravity Forms will have a version that says it's HIPAA compliant. It's expensive. So unless somebody wants to pay for that, we usually try to tell people not to just send anything through the website. It's just a layer
Other
of
than contact.
potential liability that
Hmm?
10
Other
years
than
down the road, you say,
contact.
"Oh, crap,
Yeah,
something
Yeah.
happened."
contact.
so I think we're
We didn't
leaning
have
towards
that language.
eliminating the upload.
We can still provide, put that disclaimer there in case somebody's just wondering.
Could you have a link to your email with the Sensei encrypted software you use?
Like this.
Meaning that the person at the other end would upload through SendSafely?
We have. Then you receive it in Sensafely, so you could have, I don't know. We have encrypted email.
Right. And I've seen it on if you want to use it.
Yep.
It's on your return.
Yep.
How many people do it?
If we ask them, sure.
Okay,
That's the way we get everything.
Yeah.
Ordinance.
Right.
yeah.
right.
But
Mary
hers
Jane
has
says not
her
to
outgoing
get
message
email from us.
always says.
Oh, right,
If
right.
you have your own link, yeah.
Yeah.
If you have
I think-
account.
I think if somebody wants to send us stuff, I don't know.
That's a good way to do it. If-
Yes,
From our standpoint, that would be a good way to do it. I don't know how taxing it would be internally or for the end user that's never winked at something like that.
And I think it is a rare instance that would be need to do that. So maybe you can do it as a specialized, you're dealing with Mr. Bank of America.
and there are people, I got an accountant that regular email sent me someone's tax returns. I'm not liable, I didn't ask them to do that. So, I think if we just stay away from it totally.
Because I'm looking at this one, which is $259 per year, and this actually doesn't mention anything about, like, for example, HIPAA compliance,
Okay,
which that's usually like the type, we see that a lot with forms, is that they'll reference like HIPAA because
that's the
generally
tightest, yes.
the tightest one, yes.
Hmm.
So that's usually if there's sensitive information, that's kind of the standard.
So, but obviously, yes, when I'm talking with someone and they contact me and they want to make a grant application, I can reply to them that, yeah, please use this link to upload.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, that changes to match that color. Resources, and I know, Jennifer, you're working on the sub pages of information and resources, links out that will actually have a section on this page, so then somebody can go out there. I think it was about landlord resources.
I think I
Had
have
to
4
see-
now.
4? Okay. So there will be technically 4, call it, maybe
It'll-
pretty
it's
straightforward
almost like-
pages that'll have resources, links, documents for people. Similar to kind of what the site has now, just clean, so they're on their own page.
As we get closer to the end and somebody's proofing and all this sort of stuff, like I was just noticing, if you scroll up, it says section 8, where section's on one side and 8's on the other. That makes
Yeah.
my head explode. But
Okay.
just because, and the number 8's hanging out there, the widow, that kind of sort of thing there. So-
Yeah, it looks like it just happened to
Because it's too
fall in
wide,
an
I think,
and-
yeah.
unfortunate spot to start with. But yes, those are the things that we're like, hey, we want to change those. We could have a forced return where section is, so that's always going to start on its own line. So, yeah, I mean, those are really the gist of the main pages that we have built out. I have FAQs from you, which we have to change from the link that you found to
Yeah.
Fairport to drop those in. Yeah, really a lot of the core pages are built here. So I provide the link, obviously, via email, and if you want to just
I'll
review
send it to her.
Um, and then, yeah, on the list for us to work on, a revising copy on the agency pages, populating PDFs, the success stories, news articles, FAQs, for example, events for the meeting. So it's really a lot of those details that are being dropped in there. And then really at that point, it's, do we have everything we need? Are we missing any sections on these pages? Proofreading, checking of links, mobile formatting, all that stuff.
Can we share some thoughts?
Oh, me? Oh,
Just for the group, I want to make sure
Oh,
you got through your
yeah.
thing and before you got interrupted left and right. At least more than we already did. I like it a lot. I think, yourself, your team, Martha, Leslie, it looks really, really clean. I like the bar that changes color that specifically addresses when are we getting together next. Sort of spoon feeding that to somebody. If you can go back to the homepage, some of this is subjective, I think, and some of it is, you guys are the trained professionals, so zip it, Rob. But I always think about this, and I it's not lost on me that this is a desktop view versus a mobile view, which is going to be a whole different dynamic, right? And what someone would see when they log into the website on their phone, different than this. But I wonder if we could, and maybe it's a more narrow, horizontal framed picture that would enable along the bottom row without scrolling to see the icons and the full language of the 3 or 4 sub-organizations.
Okay. And carrying that sort of layout across, obviously, all the headers, I would assume, so they're consistent on each page.
If it can be done. I just think simplifying the navigation, and for the person that's heading to this website for the very first time, potentially with a specific sub need.
Yep.
Making it very clear to them, oh, this is the URA site.
So you can at least
It's right,
see.
I just need to click on that.
Yep.
As opposed to having to scroll, potentially, someone not even familiar with scrolling, right? Just thinking about kind of who's going to be using this, all different tech capabilities and experience, making it as easy to navigate as possible. And I think the icons with the full, not just URA, but full readout of the agency.
So like starting to see, like obviously we can tighten up between agency and the top of the icons, like tighten up this. So maybe it's like that roughly, right?
Something
And
like
then
that,
tighten up
yeah.
a little below it so that pulls that up. But yes, that can
Without making
certainly
it too busy, because I know that's a concern too. We're overwhelming to the person that first hops on, but just making it very clear, all of these things are here without having to scroll to find it. This is all part of the umbrella of the site.
Awesome. And then, yeah, that could be carried across. For example, if we tightened up, like we have space below a lot of these here. So it could be tightened. So maybe the image is like that, and that text is obviously shifted down.
Yeah, that image is
right
half
there. And then you see
half its
our
height.
vision.
You then have a white bar there where maybe everything just kind of bumps up slightly.
Yep.
So it's right there front and center.
And this is kind of the view. You see a little bit of this teasing. Okay.
Just a thought.
So I'm still that guy that wants to come in and find out about front porch grants or home improvement loans, whatever. So once this thing is done, am I gonna just be able to go over there like I do and hit the search?
Yep. And
Search key and put in front porch grant, and it's gonna
Also-
take me to, the front, where we talk about our front
Yep.
porch grants?
so for example, like how we help. So first of all, actually, there would be the residents tab, the residents page that has some of the information from the URA page. Might be a little different, might have a mix of some of the stuff from the community page as well, kind of populating that. So you would be able to go there, see that that's an opportunity. Also, we want
But do I need to go to residents to find it? I'm just saying, I go to search and
Oh.
get front porch grant.
Nope.
I just type in front porch grant, and am I
It
gonna
would
land
show up.
somewhere?
Yep, because eventually we would have a section like this on the How We Help page.
Yep.
There would be a
Yep.
drop down other residents that would bring you a section. Front porch grant would be a searchable section right there.
Right.
So you could
Just want to
go
be
to
sure.
that.
I assume we would, but
So a few different ways, obviously, there.
I'm a simple guy.
Other questions, comments?
I like it.
Fun to see the pics.
What's our schedule and our timeline now?
What we have signed with the photographer, and he promised to the
He's at the
images.
PGA this week. He's
Correct,
sent his
yes.
pictures.
He did last week said that he would be sending over some images later this week. I don't know, I assume it must have been, he's been out and about. But he was supposed to deliver all his images to us by June 1st. We've talked a little bit about, do we want, depending on what he sends over to us, we could launch June 1st with, that's our, but would we instead want to wait for those hero images, those really
Yeah,
great photos?
what is hero images? You
It would
referenced
be
that, but I
these
didn't.
large ones at the top. That or this one here.
Oh, beauty shots?
You know, the ones that make you go, wow.
Not the ones that say help.
It
Not
would be
the
ideal
shots.
to launch with those.
No parking, no poetry, no.
Nope.
So in my mind, if the photographer is able to give us the images by June 1, we could launch Chris by, we'd be slotting those in.
I would say, yeah, because ideally we do want to launch with those images, make sure it looks great. I would say if we got those on the first, plan launch 7th or 8th or so. I know Lissa from our team does not like to launch websites on Fridays because she likes to really monitor them for the first few days they're up. So I would say like 7th or 8th would be more ideal. I know we get them on Thursday.
So when those
we're
photos
reviewing-
come in, Leslie, you're involved in that too?
Absolutely.
And when so between you two guys are gonna pick the pics.
Yes, and with Chris too, because he knows what
Yeah.
goes where.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, it's gonna be representing us.
Because then that, say you get them Thursday afternoon, I know you're probably going to want to dive in. We'll want to dive in for a day or two, schedule them to be all swapped out and changed over, call it Monday through Wednesday, and then say, okay, this good.
now I want to, John Schlia said he'll get us the images. And as I understand, he sends over a whole pile, and then we pick out the ones we want, and then he finishes them, whatever he does to them, makes them production ready.
Probably touches them up. Yep.
So I can confirm with him, what his timetable would be. But I think it makes sense to wait to launch till we have to.
So you're gonna get a pretty big pile of those things, right?
Well, he's not giving us a pile of pictures.
No,
Like
I-
gallery.
I think there was-
Somewhere, but like,
Figurative.
yeah.
So,
His initial deliverable was pretty large.
Yes. And where are we going to house these images for keeping for life? Because the canal look may
Yeah,
change,
some of
it'll
them.
take a long time. You know?
Right.
I guess.
well, we
need to
may
make
wanna rotate in and out.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Seasonally.
besides seasonal.
Yeah.
I mean, just something gets tired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need to make sure we
All of a sudden,
You're like-
decent.
I know when we spoke, there's the initial shot list of needs. Seasonal updates are great, as well as you might say, hey, we could round out photos that we have for specific projects that maybe we don't have a ton of high res photos. Maybe it was,
Right.
the owner sent us one, it works for now, but that's next on our list to say, hey, let's get an updated photo.
Right.
That's how I kind of imagine them updating.
And then I imagine we'd have them in our N drive or whatever, the server that we store all of our stuff on already. So I know they're pretty hefty files, but I think we've got plenty of room right on our server for all that kind of stuff. So. Mhm.
And the PDFs also. I don't know what the like.
Oh,
I saw the
Gina,
letterhead is being
June,
worked on
as
today.
soon as the letterhead's
Okay.
ready, Gina's ready to roll.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's gonna
And
be.
how much time she needed to do that?
I think I told her June 1 launch, but
Okay.
I think easily to
Yeah, I gotta do mine too.
right. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't think I'll employ Gina, so I have to.
what? Well, we'll talk about that.
Donna, any
Looks good to me.
last thoughts?
And
Sorry.
you'll have links to this to play with
Mhm.
and share comments. Yep. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Chair. Go ahead.
Oh, good. That was great, guys. Thank you.
That's good, Chris, thank you.
Thank you for having me. Awesome.
Chris has been very responsive to us and very flexible, and we really appreciate it. So
Thank you.
Yeah, and if they're, like I said, once you start diving in, I know I give you the sheet just to list out some of the things that are in progress there, but if there are, like you mentioned, the headers, things that, hey, should we make these a little more narrow? Send them over, take a look at them. I mean, I think obviously the headers, that's helpful to see some of the content at times. I know it changes, if I'm on a large iMac versus, if I'm a little smaller here, for example, I can start to see our agency. So it's those sort of things where it changes based on the size of the screen, but knowing that this is probably going to be one of the most common views.
That's a while. Cool. All right.
Awesome.
just before we leave that topic, I just want to go over some of the things that I've been working on as well for our branding and relaunch. And hopefully you all got the invitation to the networking event at Faircraft on the 3rd Wednesday of June. I thought that was a good opportunity to, make our debut. I'm working on business cards, envelopes, letterhead, notes, with table covers, Chris, when you're out at a Canal Corporation event and so forth. The standing banner, there's canvas art in our office, lawn signs, one of the things I'd like to do. And the chair said he'd help me with this. The night before we launch is I'm going to be ordering 20 lawn signs, and we'll place them throughout the village on our projects, just to get that visual. I think that'll be fun. Talking about clothing, I've gotten working with someone to give me some pricing on jacket or vest, sweater, polo shirt, that type of stuff. And then as well as working on promotional items. We talked to there's portfolios or Yeti knockoffs or pens and so forth. So there is, when you put that all together, it's a bit of money. I'm not going crazy on anything. It's just, for example, I think it was 100 pens is $235, that type of thing. Because we're going with quality, not the highest, but not the cheapest. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about those items. And we have the website expense, photography expense, and then this expense. But go bigger, not go bigger is to stay home, but it's
Make it impact.
thank you.
Do it right. It's one shot. And we're rolling it out.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
You're going to need some tchotchke too, some mostly tchotchke for the network event.
right.
You've been thinking about that.
Right. Well, either pens or journals or the Yeti knockoffs are very expensive.
Yeah, they are. We're not handling those.
The portfolios,
That's staff.
huh?
We're not
So-
handling that.
It's internal.
Yeah, these.
Oh, okay.
We got some. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not cheap.
No, they're quality, but yeah. And any other suggestions? Tell me what you like. Tell me what you pick up and use. That's what I keep asking. What do you use from? Sheila mentioned her pens. She loves the pens, and that's something you use every day. It's not super sexy or anything, but it's something you do use. So let me know, anybody, and I've got a good guy I'm working with is very responsive in doing that, so.
Do you have a ballpark number that we should be thinking about for a budget for this?
Well, if we, all of those items that I talked about, again, the printed materials, promotional materials, clothing and giveaways, we're in the like $6,000 range. It's, the business cards alone are
Well, yeah, that's
$11.55.
Business probably just changing our logo. I mean, a lot of that stuff is not extra. I mean, it's just stuff we have to do that's changing our, because we changed our logo.
Yes.
We changed our brand.
Yes, yes.
Rollout stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Giveaways or anything like that.
I know what we typically do too is, well, obviously you have the print pieces, which you need
Mhm.
up front, is
Right.
one or two promotional items. You typically end up having them for a while. Go to another event, you're like, hey, let's order one more. Kind of like phasing, and eventually you kind of have a
Yep.
collection, whether it's the waters, pens, mouse pads,
Yes,
water bottles that you
Yeah.
internally drink.
right.
Is 2025 enough? I mean, we had the photography, did we amend the budget for the photographer?
No, I
Previously? I'm
don't,
not sure we acted on that.
I don't think we did.
No, that was,
14.4.
yeah.
Are we going to the fiscal year budget? I'm sorry, are we June to July? July to
We
June
are fiscal year ends September 30.
October.
So we have to do something. So if the 14.4 plus 6 puts us evenly at 20,
Mhm.
gives you a little more wiggle room in case we all get a little crazy when we think of the things we want.
And it could be done
I'd like
in scale, it could be
Yeah.
scaled, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and that's pretty much the initial outlay. That would be 100 pens, 100 little journals. I can knock off, well, there's portfolios are expensive. That they come in because you have to order minimums as well. The clothing is the only item you can order individually. So, if we took off we could probably knock off about $1,400, $1,500, but with the clothing, promotional and printed, that's, 5,000. So if the 20,
It's out of the IDA budget, correct?
correct.
It's okay.
Do
Do you want to keep it at 20 or do you want to go a little higher to give it
A little higher.
flexibility? Should
I
we
mean,
go
I'm-
25?
we want to formally amend the budget for that, maybe?
I don't know that we need to.
Okay,
Ed,
Where's Ken?
so,
we'll just
we don't
accept
need
the
to.
variance.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
If we have to do it, if we have to make a motion for a fund transfer, which we won't even need to do that, we're not working like the village board.
Okay.
I wonder too, if you think about like the different audiences that some of that stuff is for.
Mhm.
Maybe it's, if the portfolio is for the same audience that you would have a Yeti, or
Mhm.
one of our, the Black Dog thermos, that I lug around everywhere.
Mhm.
Something like this where it's something that someone would have as like a little personal billboard on their desk. Maybe you trim something out of that category,
Mhm.
right? But that's a category that we need. And that's a category. that would
Okay, I
work for
see your
the- for
point.
the
Yep, yep.
tchotchke at an event. And then other stuff is more disposable,
Yep.
less
Mhm.
billboardy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Think about a couple different ways we make it a little skinnier.
Okay.
Still probably gonna be a line item. but
Yep. Good.
I agree. That's typically what we do. We have some more expensive stuff that's, we'll call it reserved for if you get a client.
You're
they're,
handing
like
it to
very qualified,
someone.
as opposed to if we go to a business
Trade show.
event at a chamber and everybody's
Yep.
just cycling through grabbing everything.
Think about like a
We
new
used to
business,
call them that, the arm sweepers with pens.
a
Like
new
20
business in the
signs.
village here that you would want to make that
Yeah.
impression on.
Right. Right. Good.
20 signs seems like a paltry number when we've got front porches and we're going to roll out another
Oh.
facade program. You know what I mean? That seems
Oh.
like they would be gone in an instant.
Well,
Instant being 6 months.
I was also thinking of that these signs would go out.
Especially as long as some of these people are taking with their front porch projects. They stay up for 8 months.
Yes.
That's worth the sign.
Yeah. I was thinking that these signs would be up for maybe a week and then we'd collect them and just.
Oh, you can bring back. Oh, I see.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, I see.
And I'm also thinking of storing signs, 20 signs or however many. So I think 20, if we concentrate, I was envisioning working from the commercial corridor out. So not every project, but certainly anything that fronts on any of the main streets and so forth. Already cleared it with the code officer, but we can't have it in the tree lawn.
Okay,
Okay,
move this, we have visitors.
great, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank
Yes.
you all as well.
Thank
And yeah.
you.
Let us know if there's anything follow-ups when you get to review things, dive in a little bit more.
How would you like that, their comments funneled through one person or?
That would be easiest, yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But
Good.
awesome.
And remember, it's draft and it's, we can do almost anything at this point.
Yeah.
There's certain structures through it, but it's very,
And yeah, I think the way we look at it is it should be a living document and not just adding PDFs and projects, but over time, new opportunities. Hey, we're finding out this is what people want, changing things around. So it's like, hey, let's get it great. Let's get it exactly how we want it. It launches, but then periodically, you're meeting here. Okay, thoughts. Do we need to change anything? Do we need to add anything? What are we hearing about it? Those sorts of things. So,
Okay,
all right.
so you had on our agenda, photography
Oh.
contract, did we just talk about that?
yes, I just wanted to get it in the record that the
Okay,
contract
so-
was signed and we expect images soon, so.
Yeah.
Or.
In here, no, I'll go answer some emails.
Yeah,
Let
Yeah,
you guys
you
finish
can hang
up.
out in here.
if you want, right in there.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
if that works,
Yes, that's fine.
great. Thank you.
So I don't see Tom here.
Tom, unfortunately, something came up late and he was unable to attend, but hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at the proposal for the Thomas Creek wetlands, the next phase. Earlier in our discussion, we talked about continuing our work out there to improve the, primarily to include, improve the connection to the village. A lot of people don't know it's there. It's not particularly pedestrian friendly. There, we've worked with Tom on many of our projects out there. He showed me an original project for the front entrance, which was heavily parking dependent. And, we've changed since then. We talked about improving pedestrian access via lift for Laney's, but also improving the bicyclists. It's very heavily used there off the canal trail, some blind spots and so forth. Donna mentioned we want to make sure it's comfortable for people with different abilities to access the wetlands. Leslie's proposed a name change, but we're not getting into that.
The Leslie White Thomas Creek Nature Park, I believe is what it is.
I'm not really sure we need that Thomas Creek part, really.
So Tom has presented something, a complete proposal to design and design and manage the build. I appreciate we've got a lot on our plates right now with a lot of perhaps more priority projects, but Tom pointed out that, if we were able to engage him in the conceptual design phase, we might be able to
You could give
file
us
a
a couple
grant.
of renderings of
Yes.
what it might look like. and
Right.
Gives us something to work on.
The Regional Economic Development Council just opened the next round of the CFA grants. So timing
When are
is
those
good.
due? November,
I didn't
Oh,
get
no,
that
those
far.
are when they-
July 30, I think.
July, and then they
So.
announce it in November.
Right. So
Okay.
I would like to recommend that the board at least engage in the conceptual design phase.
Sure.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on that one? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next we have our friend Peter Vargas.
Mhm, mhm.
Pete, I haven't seen you in a while.
Yes, so this is a follow-on to, some of the successes we've had here in the village and what we have identified as a need to provide additional parking on the north side. Because we worked with Peter on our previous iterations of the parking lot, we asked him to come back and give us a proposal to, initially we thought putting back what we planned on in 2018, or that's how the proposal came in, and I said, well, we've changed quite a bit since then. So, and I think in a separate email, I forgot to include it in the package I showed you. I had had great discussion with the property owners of the cannery, And they had come forward with their own design about what they thought could be accomplished there. It's a little more intensive maybe than what the board, actually, that's a watered down version from what they first brought to me. I did say to them, we've expected to put in some type of green space. That was the goal when we started out there. So they kind of modified it, but I think there's some, and Peter probably agrees, there's some interesting ways they looked at it, like the way they stack the parking and so forth. So do you want to talk a little bit, Peter, or?
Do I have to come up?
No.
No.
Oh, thank goodness. So the plan, the 2018 plan, I think, presented the opportunity to gain about 50 additional parking spaces. But if you recall, that plan was somewhat more centric on creating usable green space between the parking area and Thomas Creek. That was really the primary focus of that plan, was to create some usable green space there, almost kind of really a small park. There was
Little pocket park.
Yeah, there was a pocket park and a dog park was part of it. So it was really about trying to almost make it a little bit of a destination, so to speak, a green space destination. Obviously, 5 years later, things have changed, and whether the priorities have changed or not. So what, in discussions with Martha, I mean, obviously you could just go ahead and put the 50 spaces in.
And that's the area that we have stoned.
Yes,
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Millings.
The millings have been brought across the street, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that area is in pretty good shape as being prepped. However, if you're going to look at this, and this is really the primary focus of the updated proposal, was, okay, if we're going to get in there and work, do we want to adjust our priorities? How important is it to create a pocket park in this area? Or is there a way to rebalance it? Well, we still don't ignore the presence of the creek and the green space component, but there appears to be obviously a more significant demand for parking in that area, such that should we really look at how we can maximize that, get the best value for the dollar there. So that's really what we would look to do here over initially, is just making sure that we can economize the parking out there, without foregoing in the future if there wanted to be some type of park improvements or whatnot.
Well, I think we've had a long-range goal of doing something with that Thomas Creek corridor right through that area, because it's a neat little
It
asset.
is.
So maybe the thinking is we still want green space. It's important, and it was done for a reason, for the north side that wasn't having those areas. But maybe instead of a congregation spot, it becomes a linear park, and it becomes more of a trail type of park along the creek, and there's creek improvements. I think that's something that probably should be looked at, because the green space was important. Like I said, it was, something that was identified in the comprehensive plan as, a necessity on the north side. But you're right, the north side has changed huge, with their commercial activity there. But if we could still do something to keep green space, but also allow us to maximize parking.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that approach, Kevin, in the fact that really that segment of Thomas Creek really lends itself to be more of a linear park than a pocket park. Part of the reason I never really liked the idea of the pocket park back there is because it's back there. It's out of sight.
Yeah.
And
Things
what's it? It's really not going to become, like Canal Park or whatever. But a linear park makes a lot of sense, really, to enhance that pedestrian and connectivity too, that you can do it.
because ultimately, some point we're going to want, we've always talked about putting a trail or at least a walking path back to the senior apartments.
Exactly, and that's what this could do. It creates what I guess you call it, the west end anchor of such a path. And then the fact, as you mentioned, what's transpired in 5 years is, while you may be concerned that maybe foregoing some of those park improvements for the sake of the car, but those cars are there today. And they are starting to find other places to park. And do we not want to get them where they should be parked? There's kind of that little bit of a trade-off too, that you could say that benefits the neighborhoods, the immediate area.
So what would we, so I looked at the proposal, but if we go ahead, so how would we approach this? As far as determining what we're gonna do there? You need some direction, or I don't think this is probably designed to give us a lot of options, is it?
It is, that's the
Okay.
revision Martha asked us,
Okay,
which was not just to take the 2018 plan and issue
right,
construction documents. No, she reached out to us and said,
good, okay.
just everything I just said, is there a way to rethink this?
Mhm.
And let's look at what those options are. So I would envision what we would do initially is come up with whether it's 1, 2, 3 different options of how we can optimize the space there. Recognizing we have the slope on the north end, the floodplain along Thomas Creek on the south end. How do we work with it to come up with the options that then we can say, this seems to achieve our goals, this is the balance we want. Now let's get this done and out.
So that would be, you'd start out with that topo map, right? And then
To be honest with you, I wouldn't do that
Oh.
until we know what we're doing.
so you'd go to number 2, the
Right.
design services?
To do those sketch layouts or those alternates, we can work on the existing mapping that we have.
Oh, okay.
So then, Peter, would everything else fall, I mean, so like, would the recommendation be just to engage you similar to what we just did with GPI, engage in a design service,
Yeah.
an initial design, and then we figure out how much contract administration, depending on what we're gonna build,
Exactly.
right? All that stuff
Okay.
follows once we know what we're gonna build.
I would agree with that approach.
And so then, with all that in mind, so the design service price we're looking at is provides us different concepts.
Yes.
That's my thoughts.
So would this come off the parking study, will we wait for the parking traffic study? Or
Well,
will we-
That's what
well,
we're gonna-
CBD, that's why
next.
David's here.
Well, David.
As I think I said, we know additional parking is required, but David is, I'm gonna be talking about beyond parking needs and more of the traffic and pedestrian and those types of things, more comprehensive. I think we all agree more parking is needed, but I don't think we have to
there's no
wait.
sequence to it, you know?
Right, I think these
Yeah.
two things can operate in parallel, I think.
The one will inform the other though, for sure.
Sure.
Because there's definitely a factor, David, with that project that would involve certainly four folks, I've been one of them, when you go in, realize, all right, option 1 is not gonna work today or tonight, and you go directly across the street. That effort certainly will impact any traffic study that we do.
Yeah.
Or I would imagine would identify something in that traffic study.
Yeah, that whole area, by the way, David Reedy, that whole area is very dynamic and there's a lot of play and the future of what's going on the other side of the road there is really optimistic, it's exciting, but yes, they both speak to one another, and really from the village as a whole. I mean, if you want to sort of consider the whole area north of the canal, people are definitely more apt to want to park there if they know that they're going to go to the Canada area. So, and then of course, we have spaces that can be fit out in that area there. That would end up going, the parking study is, what's that potential future supply? And then, what does that demand look like? If we're starting to account for, new uses that might be going in the next, handful of years, 5 years or so.
I know we may be able to add parking and all, in whatever number we choose. And if the Campagna space gets filled with the use that is proposed,
Right.
we may be right back where we are.
Right.
And lighting is gonna be essential,
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, very much so.
Cameras maybe.
maybe,
Maybe.
and we kind of talk Fairport Electric about that.
Mm-hmm. ensuring a pedestrian connection. When you talk about the linear trail, how do we get those people from back there to the main street and so forth, those types of things, so, but I think, or I'd ask David, do you see that these could operate simultaneously?
Absolutely, and if about pedestrian connections within, then it's sort of like hands off to us where we look at it, especially what PME has done already for the streetscape. But from our perspective, from my perspective, a little more of a microscopic look at the traffic in between, let's say, Paris and 75 and North Main, and maybe even further south. That's going to see how do we connect into what's being proposed internally.
Yeah, so, I mean, well, this is good that we're kind of, well, let's take care of the BME proposal first, but then if you can hang around
Yeah.
when we're all talking. So does everybody think that's a good way to go? Just give us some design options?
That would be number 2 on the proposal.
And Mr. Bars, you had a chance to put eyes on this one. I printed off a portion of what we received. Mark, share that with you.
The one from Jim New, is that the one?
Yeah.
From Donald.
So that seemed, just my 2 cents. I'm all for moving forward with the idea of options that you would present and consider. I think, I don't know, my initial thought was I would love options that have more green space than as
yeah.
was presented.
Yes.
That's pretty
That's
intense.
just,
That-
that's their
That's
idealistic
less
fantasy.
intense than what they came forward with. But I appreciate the thought of doing it wider versus longer. That's,
Sure.
I was just using it, when you talk to different people, you get different ideas, that's all.
Well, no, that's fine. I just say it's interesting what you can do when you don't worry about topography or floodplains.
And learning that this was the scaled back version. Right?
Yeah.
This was the second swipe at it. I
Yeah.
just wanted to pass along the 2 cents that
Oh, absolutely, yes.
even more scaled back on the parking front, but accomplishing similar goals of more, would hopefully be taken into account. It sounds like it already is.
Yeah, I mean, and and part of that's being cost driven too. I mean, sure, you could do that, fine, but it's expensive. You know, how much you end up paying per space.
Sure. Oh,
You
yes.
Find that cost
Yes.
benefit.
It wasn't an endorsement of the plan. It was just a sharing what I'm getting from other people, so.
Understood.
So if we all say yes today, when will you be back to us with
You tell me.
options?
I mean, seriously, I mean, you meet monthly?
Correct,
Yeah, I mean, we could have something by the next meeting. for sure.
great,
That's fine, that'll work with,
great.
because I don't think we're gonna be doing any construction this summer.
Yeah, keep post festival season anyway.
Right, I mean, but maybe we can get a fall project.
Oh, yeah. That would be great. So the next meeting would be our June 19th meeting.
I would move to proceed then. I'm understanding it would be estimated fee of $7,500.
Yeah.
Bullet point number 2 here. I'd move to proceed with that phase of it at this point in time.
I'll second that.
Is there any other further discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So then that brings us now to David, to talk to us a little bit about the proposal that we received from SRF for a parking study, and Martha is saying a traffic study as well.
Or transportation report.
Yeah, and I'll be candid with it. I was kind of a little surprised at the time, that you're showing in here. It made me wonder what is actually the study going to involve to do this. And it overlaps, you mentioned the streetscape plan, and, so that's part of it. And the village has their own core, or should be doing some of their own transportation planning. And we kind of went into this saying we have a parking problem. Martha, I know, has added to it with the traffic as well.
I
But-
walk.
But, well, as I do as well.
No, but yes, to your point.
But what we have is kind of an immediate problem, that is not it hasn't been brewing for a long time. I mean, I guess we can look back and see that, there might have been some red flags, but this thing has just kind of come to a head. And so we're looking for solutions. We don't believe there's a silver bullet for this, what's going on there. So we're kind of looking to get in there something quick and kind of focused on that. So I don't know. That was my thought anyway, as I read this. I thought it was expensive and I thought it was taking a lot of time.
And I will say one of the
So I need
things,
to understand
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
we initially had conversations with the people that did the Northwest Quadrant update. That would be Matt Ingles and Andy Rouse at Bergman. And they were unable to take on the project at the time. And so they asked David if he'd be interested. So do you want to just give us kind of an overview of it? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
we can refine our understandings of what we're looking for.
Absolutely, and in no way is this proposal, final. I welcome this evening's discussion to refine exactly what you are looking for. This is based on, in large part, the conversation that I had with Matt Ingles. That was also with Martha and Andy, and it goes back several years. And being a village resident up on Summit Street, I certainly know firsthand seeing the parking issues that have accumulated over the years since I've moved here in 2011 and where we are today, and seeing the transformation the cannery has had on the village and what that impact has had into the greater areas, into the other parking areas. It's certainly felt by everybody, visitors, residents, and businesses. So this parking study is it's a comprehensive parking study. This, to my understanding, this parking study would give the village the overall look at what's happening today, what are the key issues, sort of developed as like a comprehensive plan. Where are we now? Where do we want to be, and how do we get there? And so this parking study, this proposal for this parking study, attempts to look at that. And I sort of wrote out a brief structure of what the plan looks like, starting with an executive summary, going all the way to the implementation plan. And so the first step, obviously, is to document what's going on today. We do know what is going on today. We can see it every weekend. But from a plan development standpoint, it's always important to have data. And so this plan was to look at getting data during off-peak and peak seasons in multiple data points in each of those, so that we can sort of scrub out any abnormalities, make sure that we're documenting parking demands during typical, let's say, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday days and evenings, and to make sure that you've got a good sort of longitudinal study of what the parking issues are going, what they are today. And that can help out if you do seek funding for particular implementation strategies down the road, or people have questions and sort of pressed on, why are we spending this money doing parking solutions? It's because of what we have documented in this survey and study. And so we do it that way, or we look at it from that approach. And then the second approach, which sort of takes into account Andy Rouse and Matt Ingles' assistance, is looking at public engagement, developing a public engagement plan. And so that's looking at interviewing business owners and bringing the public out, or at least the key stakeholders in the study area, cannery, any of the parking lots, or business owners that use the parking lots in and around their businesses, and perhaps also developing a survey that can be taken by customers, visitors, building tenants, to really give the village and you folks a good comprehensive picture of, okay, really, we have the hard data, what we're seeing out in parking lots, but now we also have the anecdotal data, we've got the feedback. And so that really helps to sort of establish, okay, where do we want to be, what's our vision? And then that next stage, that next step from there is to then develop a bit of a comprehensive list, but certainly a focused and strategic list of improvement strategies that the village and OSED can look to implement, that can be anywhere as soft as installing some sign, or as soft as perhaps encouraging business owners to carpool, or park a little farther out, because we have no idea how many business owners are using parking spaces. we did a study in Penn Yan and found that almost 75% of the public parking that was utilized during peak periods was by Penn Yan business owners. There's a lot of leftover space for all the visitors that you want to bring tax dollars into the community. So we have no idea here, and so that's what this study would hopefully try to tease out of the village here, especially north of the canal. But those strategies could involve those. It can involve signage wayfinding, and then ultimately developing a matrix that looks at each of those. What's the time frame for development of those parking strategies? Who might be responsible for them? At potential cost, and then maybe some funding sources that could be sought to implement those. So that's why the parking study, is sort of laid out the way it is. I sort of gave you the kitchen sink with it. It is a comprehensive look at the parking issues that are occurring north of the canal here, and it involves the study. I spoke with Martha a little bit prior to this meeting, and we can certainly add on looking at the breakage lot. I'm wondering if maybe the bridge lot, the train depot is another lot that we should include. So again, this is a very comprehensive study, but is it what you need? And that's why I'm here to sort of talk this through with you this evening. And then the traffic study is a bit separate. Again, that's something that I always like to scope any traffic studies with either my clients, with traffic agencies, or with the municipalities to make sure, again, we're studying exactly what needs to be studied. So this is sort of maybe a higher end, I'm picturing studying several intersections at various times, weekday, also Saturday midday, looking at pedestrians, actually looking at documenting pedestrians crossing Main Street within that segment there during those times, and perhaps even at maybe another identified period, to really identify, okay, where are people actually crossing, especially if it involves, if we want to even consider putting in a new crosswalk between High Street and Tracks, where would the best location be? And that's not to say that it can go in right now, but that's just for example. And so that study would also look at documenting existing conditions, and then sort of laying on that what's coming into play, what kind of traffic generations are we going to foresee in the next, let's say, 2, 3, 5 years or so that we may have to account for, whatever the study provides we might want to consider. And in that way, we can, take a look at what's happening in the road system versus what's happening in the parking lots. And it also speaks to the multimodal aspect of, we're analyzing not just for the motor vehicle, this being such a walkable village, we want to make sure that balancing that out, and perhaps even putting a higher priority on pedestrians, bicycles, and then all the other modes following that.
It's very comprehensive, and I think that all of that you talked about is needed. It's important. But I guess my concern is we're looking at it as though said we're not, the village of Fairport. And it came out a couple of times in recent public hearings on how, a lot of people have called for, is a cap, the circulation access, parking. Yeah. Cap studies, Matt Engels had done one, quite a while ago. And the village, I'm not sure if they've made any moves towards doing something like that, but I don't know that our board is willing to be the ones that take on this big, big project that needs to be done. We haven't talked about it as a board. We talked about just, there's a particular problem area right now. Martha has graciously and crazily decided that she wanted to insert herself into that to try and find resolutions to that issue up there that can be implemented inexpensively, relatively short order to get some of the stress off. You're not going to solve it, but Parks Avenue parking, and there's some more talk about that now, which I think is really a good idea. There's things that can be done, lots of different things that need to be talked about. I agree. You started off talking about the data being so important, and it is. I mean, we can all look at it and say, I'm up there a lot. And I know what the parking lot looks like. And the couple of times that I've had to drive up there, I've been circling like Rob did, making the loops around. But we're trying to focus on that, and we don't really want to do a half-ass study, but I'm not sure that how far this thing goes. That's my concern, and I don't know the answer. I hear what you guys think about what we're looking at and what David has just told us.
I felt like it was 4 to 6 months, seems like an eternity. And frankly, and like, since we just asked Peter to, pedal to the metal on some designs, we talk about how do we move pedestrians from the back of that parking lot across the street, and if you mentioned a crosswalk, and I thought, how can we possibly decide those? What if we put pedestrians on the wrong side of where the crosswalk is going to be?
That's why they're engineers.
Right, which is why
They know what code it is.
which is why I want you guys to work faster together. And less expensively, let's put that out there too. No, I'm kidding. No, but you say we don't want to do a half-assed job, but we want to do a down and dirty job that gets us through without, and help
Immediate
solve this problem before somebody gets killed up there. That scares me.
I definitely, I hear you, and I think this is really a great discussion. I'm glad that Peter was on this agenda tonight, because hearing what's going on here, it's definitely informed me, especially with the timeline that you're looking at. It's definitely helped inform me that we don't need to do a lot of the study that I thought we need to get out of it. You're right, that CAP study that was funded by GTC many years back, and that was a Fairport-led project. That's a sponsorship kind of project that the OSEC could do if they so choose, or perhaps it is a more village-led project or jointly. But either way, the funding, you don't have to worry about the funding. It's not a match, but it's a split. It's a majority split of I won't say like 90-10 split of GTC funding helps go to those types of planning studies, not design, but just planning. And then the rest can be either in-kind services or some other funds that are used to supplement that project. So that's something that, if that was so desired, that can be updated. But that could be something else that is another topic. So yeah, I think for here, if you did want to look at data, you could get data. If not, we all certainly have a great picture of. I certainly have a lot at times. I know what that feels like. In fact, I've learned to just park on street and walk down. As soon as the first spot I see, I park on street and walk. So I know that there's no way around the blind spot. I don't want to circle, and it's pretty quite frankly most evenings. You have a lot of pedestrians circling in and out, and depending on what time it is, there may have been more beverages consumed at that point. It's a precarious situation.
I can't even imagine how, even as we expand the parking lot across the street, nobody can go straight across. I mean, they go like this and they turn around either in Railroad Street or in Max, and then they try and turn left out of Max, so they go right into, I mean, it's not helping. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how we. David,
is there a component of data that you could get that would inform this short-term solution? Or is there data needed to help inform the short-term solution of expanding parking? Is there?
Yes, I think coming out of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like what's definitely needed is, let's take a look at what's going on the street. What are movements in and out of driveways there? Street. I think that's critical to see how people are actually functioning on the street. We're going to look sort of like outside in or inside out, depending on how you're looking at it, but let's look at the street. So I think still observing what people are crossing, how people are using those driveways is very critical. And so I think that can be included. And then moving inward, I would say that let's perhaps do a documentation of parking demands on, let's say, a Friday. I know you mentioned that there's classes that are.
Thursdays is when it starts to heat up a
Thursdays exactly. It's always the later part of the week. So, I think we need to maybe like a 1 or 2 period, 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock snapshot or so on a Friday evening, let's say, just to sort of get our heads wrapped around, okay, this is how many actual parking. We could do that, next Friday. We could do that very quickly. That doesn't take 4 to 6 months. The reason why it's 4 to 6 months is because I want to do off-peak, end-peak, to really get that comprehensive look. So, like I said, it sounds like we can scale that back and then provide a list of improvements or potential implementation strategies. But it's sort of a menu, and here's what they do, here's the benefits, the pros and cons, and perhaps if you want to be that high level, here's the menu that you can choose from. Then you can sort of drill down with property owners or parking lots.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, a lot of players in this one.
Yeah.
Now, with this data that we get, would that be helpful to the village planning board as they consider?
Well, I mean, we certainly share any information we get. It
I
can be
think-
used in lots of different places. It's not going to be proprietary.
Okay, but I'm thinking
So-
when Leslie talks about filling the old Campane.
Or when pickleball, I don't know how many courts they're gonna put in there,
20,000 square feet. you can
I
put a
don't
lot
know
of
how.
pickleball in there.
And that's gonna go, if you've seen any pickleball plays, it seems like it goes from, morning till midnight, they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may, I don't mean to interject here, but what, based on what you've asked us to do, David brings up something that's very important. If we're going to expand this lot, and really, I'm going to use the term actually even bring some attention to that lot, because I don't know. I mean, I think most people have learned the lots there, but a lot of people still don't know it's there or really get a sense for it. But we're going to make this commitment. I think it's very important to understand not only how pedestrians will work, getting from that lot across the street, but then think about it too. You've got High Street and Main Street intersection, and just 100 feet, not even, you've got the 2 curb cuts from the cannery plus this curb cut.
Actually, you have
a
3
lot.
because you have Village Inn too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Thank you. My point, you got a lot going on there, left turns, and okay, if this guy's turning left at the cannery, can I bail
They're
around?
backed up for a train.
But now
Martha's showing
Yeah.
up.
I need to go on to High
You sneak
Street.
around the car.
My point is, I think it'd be very good. It almost has to happen that
Pedestrians.
we got to figure out how that's all going to work. You talk about a lot of players being involved. Now that all of a sudden rolls
It's in
into
DOT.
and the Main Street plan.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
Oh, right, yeah.
So.
But now where does DOT get involved in this if we're putting in a crosswalk? I mean, that's got to be run by them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So basically, what will happen, because Main Street's still under the jurisdiction, there's the responsibility of the village. Main Street's the responsibility of the village, but they do review all traffic control.
Yeah,
Right,
sure.
so they will have a say, so to speak, which David knows
On
that.
a crosswalk.
Yeah, and it can be difficult, if you're gonna put one in, so to follow what Pittsburgh did, we worked on that one, and that was a lot of back and forth with the emergency responders, one by Galante and
Oh.
Pittsburgh Dairy, that little pedestrian refuge there. Very helpful, but it's much more stringent guidelines and requirements go into doing something like that at new locations versus at the intersection.
Yeah, ideally when the cannery was first proposed, the thought was, well, we had had signals at High Street.
Yeah.
And Main Street, but let's face it, how many people you see walk up
Right.
there, coming out of
Well,
the Campane?
but between you two, I would hope there'd be suggestions about how to
Right.
move people up to that crosswalk more easily.
Exactly.
Make it harder for them to cross. I don't know if that's possible, but to try to do that because it's concerning.
Might be some stuff.
Yeah, but go ahead. I'll wait.
So I just, we're not in the business of traffic control. What the history of how we got started down this road is that businesses that we have supported are making assumptions about who's taking the parking for what reasons up there. So I don't want to, I'm worried about simplifying this into a parking study that looks at how many spaces, when are people in and out, for how long are they staying? Versus I thought we were trying to get information also on the purposes of people are parking there because of these assumptions that the business owners are making. They're assuming that everybody's going into Iron Smoke to have a whiskey for 5 hours versus like some things that I've seen where it's like there's actually gyms back there, the classes for young kids, parents are coming, they're dropping off their kids and they're staying parked in their vehicles doing who knows what and taking up those parking spaces. So I don't want to simplify this.
Yeah, I get you.
In terms of looking at how many parking spaces are available, what hours. And I don't want to overcomplicate it, but that engagement part of the proposal, I'm wondering if that's really getting at the question that we're trying to seek an answer to.
Well, we're really trying to seek an answer to who comes here for what, or we just want to make sure they can park safely and get to where they need to go.
Yeah.
And is that something that we could get, I mean, again, this is not a public parking lot, so we're not dealing, we're dealing with a private owner and his tenants and stuff like that. I wonder if there's a way that we could, if there's a way we could get him to sponsor or participate in some kind of program like you're talking about. Because I think you're right, it's important, the great example is the ones dropping off for the gyms, the D1 sports. And I've seen it all the time. They sit in their cars, my kid's only in there 45 minutes. I'll just wait in the car. And, who are those people? How many are there? But then you complicate it by saying, okay, I'm going to Tin Cup after I go to TJ Ryan's, and then where I'm having, seeing the band at Iron Smoke after that. Because these are nights, that place has become a night out. It's not just solely I'm going to a bar.
Yeah,
That's a challenge.
my thought, when we first started talking about this, my thought was twofold. It was we need data to inform safety and to help inform the conversation that we want to support, right? Facilitate maybe the word, but help resolve some of the challenges that businesses that share that space are dealing with, and to invite more, right? And help inform what might work there. That would be another piece that could go into that area that potentially doesn't, what's the right word? Exacerbate the challenge, right? The businesses that would attract different folks in different windows of time. So I think maybe it's potentially scaling back some of it. Initially, I was thinking maybe we scale back some of the anecdotal data because it's coming out of our ears, right? We have everybody in this village is talking about anecdotal data about their own experience. But Donna brings up a really good point in regards to understanding what is going on there is anecdotal data, right? As opposed to car in, car out, and that kind of data. So I don't know how we scale it back in a meaningful way and still get what we need to help drive the conversation and also make sure that safety is I guess maybe the parking / traffic study within that specific area scratches the safety itch.
Yeah,
right?
I'm definitely seeing it that the traffic, what's going on in the street, the frontage on Main Street, that can be done in a much more fast-track manner. And we certainly try to line up with here, because that's a on the surface, that's a very upfront and front and center issue that we're seeing, that we can see. The parking issue, which doesn't, is internally impacted, but it's also externally impacted. That can be something that maybe does have a little bit longer time frame. So if you want to get that data and get those stories and get those those survey questions answered that you're mentioning, we're trying to tease out of everyone. That could be something a little bit separate. So I could almost say, all right, structuring this proposal a little bit differently, where it's a little more a la carte. This is what you want to do here. Maybe we don't have as many meetings as we thought. Maybe it's just one meeting, perhaps it's with the business owner, or try to get everybody in the same room at one meeting, get that survey out there. I think that survey could still be helpful. Get out there for 3 weeks or so. Make sure that everybody's got enough time to the same time, doing the separate study of what's going on the street, doing our sort of mobility study at the curbs, to see what's going on there, to, again, better inform both plans.
So short of a survey, is there any way to get the information that Donna is talking about there? I mean, who's going where and how long they staying? And even a survey, I just question how reliable that's going to be. You know, is it coming from the business owner or just a select few tenants?
I think they were actually going to widely distribute it to even patrons.
Yeah, our intent was to, try to get everybody along that strip there, or whoever else wants to participate in this, have something right, front and center.
Like
so
a QR code on the tabletop at Tin Cup.
Yep. Try to capture the whole gamut of people that are patronizing this, not just the.
But so the survey is where that I mean, it's going to come by that, but
Yeah, ideally. I mean, the other way is to observe, and that's obviously
that's more counting.
Right? Yeah.
And,
Or stalking.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what I guess, we have more discussion, we can keep going, but I guess next step in my mind is that, Dave, you spend a little time with Martha and come up with, she's got our feeling and we'll continue. We'll think about more input that we'll tell her about, and then you guys can revise a proposal to do what we're talking about.
Right, because I think I now better understand parking study versus transportation, finding out what you said, what's happening at the curb, right?
Yeah.
Which is what the information Peter would be helpful to Peter, right? That's a separate and unique item that can be done fairly quickly.
Correct.
I think.
I believe so. I mean, we can
And then
cameras as early
a
as next
study or whatever is that's separate. That's a separate item.
Yeah, to do the sort of the outreach, or to,
Right.
again, we could do just hard parking counts next week. We could do, hard video collection of what's going on at the driveways, of pedestrians. We could do all that as soon as this week. That I think is a separate issue of what we want to get a little, how deep do we want to go?
Yeah, so I think, because a lot of this came through Matt and Andy, and neither of them had really spent a lot of time with us to what we were looking for.
And I think they're both very passionate about what they think should happen, and so they
But
presented them.
again, we're not the village,
Right.
There's certain responsibilities that others have, so.
Right. So maybe we get a
Good with
proposal
The
from
way this is going.
David in a week's time.
Yeah,
And then-
I'll get you an updated one this week, so that is, still fresh in place. And we'll go from there.
Thank you.
And then we'll figure out how to convene to consider that, because I think with Peter's time, how does your timeline, when would that traffic data information be
Well,
most helpful?
I mean, it really won't affect what we need to do between now and when we come back.
Okay.
We're gonna just be looking at concepts, because the fact of the matter is, our relationship to Main Street is fixed, or it's there today.
I see.
My point was, which I think we all share, is just, we can't ignore that component of this parking expansion plan we're doing. It's not just what happens at the current edge of pavement heading east. Let's remember, we're gonna put 50, 60, 70 more cars here. That's that many more people that want to cross the street or turn in and out.
Okay. Good.
Don't ignore that end of it.
Great.
Yeah.
Especially, and so from a timing standpoint, we kind of talked about this may be a fall project, so by then you need to know what you're going to do with the street.
And streetscape is 25 construction,
That's my understanding, yes.
25. Yeah,
25,
okay.
24 is going to be mostly design approval.
Yeah, just to clarify, our typical traffic studies generally take about 30 days or less to put together. That includes going out, getting our data collection. We've since doing some in-house collections with some video cameras, so we'll have video cameras out there looking at the various time periods. So between that, processing that data, and then analyzing it, that usually can happen within 30 days.
And that can be turned over to us piecemeal, right? I mean, we get a traffic review as we're still working on other things that we're doing, survey kind of stuff, but we would get the parking data.
Correct, yeah, and if that's,
As that happens,
yep, that's something we can definitely.
with a little summary of it and what you captured.
Exactly,
from that.
here's a one-page memo, this is what we saw this evening, basically just quick meeting minutes, but, here is documentation, because the conditions right away, you've got something in the end while we work on analysis.
Okay. Very good? Yeah. Anyone?
Very good.
All right.
Very
Well,
good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen,
Thank you.
we appreciate it.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah. So our next item on the agenda, is there any other old business or new business before we go into an executive session?
I do not have any.
So we're going to enter into an executive session for the purpose of, what do we call it, Ed?
Appointment of personnel.
Okay, for personnel.
Personal.
So if we could have a motion to go into executive session. Second. All in favor? Aye. Maybe we should just go into the little conference room.
No,
We have, Chris is in there.
we can close this door.
Okay. we could do that.
Text me when you're done.
Yeah, yeah.
The idea was to talk about this during IDA, in the IDA meeting, executive session. Can't take any action until we come out. They are really good.
Okay.
And then we'll have to make the appointments again for the
Oh, wait.
next meeting.
I'm gonna end the light. We're gonna, and so we'll. Did you, is that what you're just telling me? Reiterate that again for the audience.
So we will be entering into executive session, which no action will be taken. And we will come out and then action will be taken in public